Hello, and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Hello, and welcome to Enlightened Empaths. On today's show, we're going to talk about your stress language. Remember that trendy book about identifying your love language a few years back? Well, there's a new study out that helps us identify what our stress language is. And we thought that since stress is an inevitable aspect of human existence and can manifest in so many different ways, like influencing our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, that this would be a really important topic to cover. And even though stress is universal, the response to stress is not uniform. It varies among individuals, and it's influenced by your personality, upbringing, and experiences. And so, one effective approach to managing stress is learning and identifying what your unique stress language is. This is a combination of your reactions and coping mechanisms. So, we thought this would be a really big topic because stress, everyone has it, right?
And right now, there's so many people that are struggling with stress and anxiety because, as empaths, we do tend to suck it all up like a sponge. We tend to have to differentiate, is this my stress? Is it someone else's? A lot of people, their work environments have changed and they're going back in after being in the comfort of their own home. So this is a perfect timing for this show.
I think so too, because, we all have different ways of communicating and expressing ourselves, but we also have different ways that we deal with our own stress. And this is how we perceive, interpret, and respond to stressors. And it holds all sorts of stuff like our emotional, cognitive, behavioral, and psychological components. But with self awareness, reflection, and targeted interventions, we can really cultivate a resilience to stress and navigate life's challenges with greater ease and adaptability. And so we think embracing your own unique stress language will help empower you to not only cope with stress, but also thrive amidst adversity and helping you really foster some holistic well being and personal growth. And what triggered this show's idea was a couple of articles Denise and I read based on Chantel Donnelly's work. She's a therapist and a stress researcher who came up with this idea of identifying your stress language. And she says, when we are stressed, our blood goes to our body and leaves our frontal lobe area. So our frontal lobe kind of goes offline. Now that's important. Keep in mind what the frontal lobe of the brain is responsible for: decision making, controlling impulses, emotions, and thinking. I have to tell a quick story, Denise, because
Okay.
the frontal lobe stuff always triggers me. My former husband has a brain injury that presents, it's called an anoxic brain injury, and it presents as a lot of issues with frontal lobe stuff. And I remember when we were going to all the different doctors and they were explaining to us what this meant, I really didn't understand what it would look like. And then
Right.
after all these rounds of doctor's appointments, we go to our favorite pizza place for dinner and just talk about all that stuff. And this woman that we know really well comes up to take our order. Now, this woman is a nuclear engineer, and I think she'd been out of school like 2 years. And we were like, oh, hi. Like, we were both kind of surprised to see her as our waitress, right? Because she had gotten this fantastic job out of college. And I said, it's so great to see you. And she said, yeah, I kind of got laid off from my job. So I'm just going to do this for a while and kind of just rest and, figure out where I want to go next. And my poor former husband with the frontal lobe brain injury goes, damn, that really sucks. I mean, you had this great degree and now you're a waitress?
Oh,
Denise, he would never have said anything like
no.
that before. I mean, it wouldn't have even come into his head, never mind to share it. So what do I do as the supportive, kind wife? I kick him under the table. And he goes, Samantha, why did you just kick me under the table? And I thought, oh, this is what it means to not be able to have impulse control.
Yeah.
But when we're stressed, think about it. All that blood is leaving that area that's so important for those things like not embarrassing yourself or your partner. That I think is how stress can really wreak havoc because then we say stuff in fights that we don't really mean, or we act out when we're driving in a car and someone pulls out in front of us. It just leaves us kind of more vulnerable for those knee jerk responses. So Chantel Donnelly also says that we have these cranial nerves that start in the brainstem, and they are associated with communication and connection. And those get compromised when we're in a stress response. So she says when you're in an argument, you're not speaking the same language. You actually are having trouble communicating and hearing each other properly. And this is why you often feel unheard or not validated in an argument. And that all can lead to circular fighting. But if you know how you respond to stress, it can help you become a better communicator, enable you to stay calm during heated discussions, and help you learn to navigate negative situations and emotions.
That's a lot of information and it's so, so, so important. And, with the frontal lobe stuff, because a lot of my background is with people who have had behavior disorders or head injuries or other things that caused difficulty in their lives. And I think that it can also lead to perseveration of thought patterns. So when you mentioned, the circular fighting, if we're not able to come from a place of stability in our frontal cortex, we may get stuck on a loop tape of thoughts that don't allow us to process due to the stress and anxiety.
Yes. And something I've been seeing a lot is people living with chronic stress. You
Hmm.
know how you're just in that season of your life where you're just chronically stressed out?
And there's a lot of variables right now that are adding to that. Uh, you know, the and we can pick a card, any card, as far as what the stressors are in the world right now. But I agree with you, it becomes perpetual. And people may wake up in the morning and then all of a sudden it's that hit the floor running feeling. And it may impact their gut health, or they may manifest headaches, or they may have I wonder sometimes, is stress a precursor to fibromyalgia type of physical reactions? It's so, so much.
Well, how many doctors have you seen being interviewed or read their books, and they all say stress is the number one killer because it leads to inflammation, it leads to an increased heart rate, all the things that you were just mentioning. And sure, we know a lot of the different ways you can manage stress, like meditation and deep breathing and getting exercise. We know all of that, but I think it's important to understand how you uniquely respond to stress so that there's no self-judgment or recrimination. We've got enough people who can criticize us, you know?
That's for damn sure.
We don't need
uh,
to do it our own selves.
right. And I think identifying it is a wonderful way to, when you are feeling that stress in your body, with however you process it, if you can say, oh, this is my stress language, it might help you work through the stress rather than getting caught in it and not being able to um, get enough to your frontal lobe.
Right. Or it might help you find a new modality for managing stress that you haven't tried before.
Right. When I read through this, I was thinking about different people in my life, my adult children, friends, and how they process stress and how the different categories align. And it is similar to love languages. If your love language doesn't match with someone else, it can be difficult to communicate, or you have to learn how. You have to learn that, oh, it's really important that I tell this person that I love them, or that I do acts of service, or, whatever that may be. Even if it's not your language, you learn to acclimate to someone else's to keep them happy. I think it's the same thing with this.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And to be able to communicate all of that honestly, I know for me, if I'm having a bad day or I've just woken up, sometimes you just wake up and you're in a cranky mood and you don't know why. I always will tell my kids, like, good morning, mom's in a cranky mood. Just, give me a wide berth today. I'll be fine in a couple of hours. Do you
When
ever do that? Like, just announce it so that no one takes it personally?
Very much so. When I worked with the kids in the program that I had, I would go, if I was having an off day, I would go in and say, today is not the day to mess with Miss Corral. And they would say, "What's wrong, Miss Carell?" And I'd say, "Just not today." And they would kind of tiptoe around me because usually I would be upbeat and fun and all that kind of stuff. And they kept giving me the side eye, like, "Uh-oh, is she okay?" And then, like the next day or something, everything would be back to normal. And they'd say, "Boy, we didn't like that, Miss Carell."
Cranky Corral is gone.
Oh no, she's scary. She's a scary one, that one. Anyway, the so identifying the languages. And again, this is this woman, Donnelly, or this person's perspective. I don't think that this is a huge field yet, but don't you think like with everything else, it's going to become more common in mental health practices, or people being able to identify how they do process stress will help.
I do. I do. I agree 100%. Let's start with the first one, which she calls the imploder. And this is a freeze response to a stressful situation where the imploder may feel hopeless, helpless, and paralyzed. So that, you know how you have your fight, flee, what is it?
Fight
What's
or
the
flight.
fight, flight, freeze, fawn?
Hmm.
So this is the freeze response, and it's called the imploder. And that's where you just kind of freeze, you stop, you don't do anything. Now, I have a friend who I saw implode in an incredibly stressful situation. And it's interesting. This is something I wanted to talk to you about. When she deals with normal day-to-day stress, she's more of an exploder. But when she had this huge thing happen where, her spouse lost his job, they had to sell the home, she had to go back to work after being a stay-at-home mom for several years, and I saw her just freeze, completely
Hmm.
freeze. Like she didn't know how to get the house ready for the market. She wouldn't get her resume ready, and it was so unlike her. So I wonder if we have different responses to stress based on the enormity of the stress.
I think so. And I think it depends on if have you developed I'm thinking about times in my life that were long, long, long periods of high stress from all directions. And I think it becomes your normal, and you don't realize that you're in a stress mode because it's how you're functioning, and you're in, oh, it's survival mode. You just have to get through. And I wonder if that was part of it. I do think that there you would fluctuate between the different ways you'd react
Yeah, I
because
do too. And that's a really good point too. There's daily stresses, there's those huge life-changing stressors, but then sometimes there are, like I was saying before, and you just alluded to again, that season of stress. I had
right.
this like weird moment on Saturday. I worked in the morning and packed some orders, and I went to the post office and I walked out of the post office, and it was this bright, beautiful, sunny day. And I was meeting some friends at one of my friends' pools. And I was so excited to just sit by the pool and like soak in some sun. Like, I was just really, really excited. And I was thinking, gosh, like just a year and a half ago, I would have been rushing to my dad's nursing home, which, of course I love to visit him, but it was always so depressing to be in there.
Hmm.
And then I would have to like grab or make or pack a quick lunch, rush over to my mom's, probably stop and buy a pack of Marlboros on the way for her as well, and then sit in her little London fog townhouse while she ate her lunch. And
Yeah,
then it would be like 4 o'clock, and maybe I'd get an hour of sun in on my Saturday. And I just sat there and I met my friends at the pool, and I was like, I don't think I realized how long taking care of them that I was kind of like inwardly holding my breath. You know what I mean?
right.
So
It,
sometimes you don't see it in the moment. It's only until it's past that you're like, "Whew, that was hard."
yeah. And it comes back to you get through it, you do the best you can, you find ways to cope. But when you look back at it from a clearer perspective, I hope it's with empathy of, my God, that was a lot to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. I'm working on that, Denise.
I think we all are.
So what do you think? Can you give another example of a freeze response?
Well, I think for if there's an extreme situation, and if you're the person who goes into that calm, okay, let's take care of it, and you're with someone who may implode and not be able to move forward, then you have to deal with the situation, and you also have to try to, I don't want to say take care of the person who has gone inward, but you're trying to help them become part of the solution, not one more part of the stress. So I think that if you're with someone who does implode, you have to learn how to uh, negotiate, not negotiate, but how can you give them some skills to be able to be part of the solution?
Yeah, and that's tricky because I remember when my friend had that freeze response to all her life changes. If I said, "Hey, let's work on your resume," or "I know a really great realtor," she would get angry. Like, "I'm not dealing with that today, you know?" And so I had to learn to just hold space with her until the freeze thawed, I guess you could say.
I wonder if, remember last week when we did the show on micro manifesting, and we
Hmm.
talked a lot about breaking it down into little tiny, tiny pieces and bites. I wonder if that would help an imploder. Like
Oh,
just give a little
yes.
tiny, let's try this. And if this is your, because I think a lot of people that do freeze, they need that time to process. They need that time to figure out what they're going to do next. So um, I'm not being cold, like, come on, be part of the solution. But I think that they need their way, because your friend, I'm sure, once she realized that, okay, I need to start doing this, it was on her timeline.
Yeah, it was 100% on her timeline, and she definitely did all the things she needed to do. But, and this was years ago, this was like 9, 10 years ago, but she was talking about it just the other day, and she was like, gosh, if only I had acted more quickly, I could have done this, or this better. And I was like, you did the best you could in that sit. That was like a ice cold slap in the face. You didn't know all that was going to hit you at once. And so I do
Well,
think it's important to be really gentle with yourself, no matter what your stress response is. I'm not an imploder, but I
mm,
am for about 20 minutes when it comes to my kids.
oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like if my kids come at me with something stressful, I need like a minute to process it. When Chloe had her appendix out, I thought she had a stomach ache, maybe bad period cramps. I took her to the doctor, and the doctor like pressed this one spot on her stomach. Chloe yelled out, and the doctor goes, "Oh yeah, that's appendicitis. You need to go to the hospital." Did he say it was like 5 minutes before I think I moved, because I
Oh,
was like,
what?
"What? My daughter has to have surgery?" Like I just totally froze. And then I was like, "Okay." And I knew what I had to do. I had to call a friend to let the dog out. I had to call Chloe's dad. I had to reschedule some work stuff, and then I was on it. But I remember sitting on that little paper plastic table, just freezing for like 5 minutes.
So I wonder if it's similar to a shock response.
Yeah.
I think it must be. Is it's just that deer in the headlights kind of a feeling.
Yeah. But when it's me, like if I get bad news, I'm all action. But if it's my kids, it's like it hits me deeper, and I need to process it.
I think that makes sense, though.
Yeah. All right, what's the next one?
The next one's the exploder, and this is the fight or flight response someone may have to stress. And the person may have an inflated reaction to a stressful situation. They might get irritable, frustrated, angry, or just leave the situation that they can't handle. And I think you can grow through different. I used to have situations where it was very much fight or flight. And I can think of different people that I would have reactions to that, and even now, I think that still rears its ugly head, but not with the regularity that it would have in the past. So I don't think that if you've always been a exploder or an imploder or any of these other things, that I think it changes as you grow and evolve.
Immature. Wait, are you saying you were an exploder? I cannot picture that.
In certain situations,
Oh, right, right, right. I
yeah.
get that. Okay. I
Uh,
wonder if how you were raised, it must determine your stress language,
oh, 100%. I would go
right? Because
100% with that.
I'm
Yeah.
sure listeners are shocked that my mother was an exploder when it came to stress.
Well, well, mine as well. My mother was very strong, incredibly strong, and very vocal.
I can
So,
remember like if we were in line, I don't know, to buy a dress or something, and the line wasn't moving well or quickly enough for my mom, she would say something and she would say it loudly so everyone heard. And I think her favorite sentence in the whole world was, "I need to see your manager." And I would get so embarrassed. And it made me so calm in so many situations.
right.
And then the other day, I had to return a pump for my little rose quartz water fountain. And I'm in line, and there's like four people in front of me. I'm with my daughter, Olivia, and the woman at the return line counter kept taking phone calls
Oh,
and taking her time explaining, yes, that would be in aisle 10, bin 4. Or, oh, yes, ma'am, I will. It just kept, and I'm like, we're all standing here. This is ridiculous. I'm going to say something. And Olivia's like, Mom, please don't. That's so embarrassing. And I thought, oh no, oh no, am I morphing into my mom? But I remained calm. But don't you think like how you are raised can
oh, I very,
direct?
very much so. Yes. I, but as you were speaking, I was thinking about that fight or flight response and your reaction of any other day, it might not have impacted you the same way, but it was just like, okay, enough of this. I've got other things I need to be doing. So is that part of it as well? The exploder, for me, and for many people, I wonder, is it that last straw reaction? Like you've had this stress building and building and building, and then it's one stupid little thing that sets you off.
Yes, I do think that is it for most people, but I've known many people who they just explode over the littlest thing. And I
Yeah.
can't be around those people. I really can't because it's like, dude, life is too short. Look around you, read a newspaper, watch the news. Like, this is so minor in comparison.
Yeah,
You know those
everything in the
people?
world pisses them off. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, my heart goes out to them because it's got to be hell to live in that head. But I cannot be around that at all. I do think, and this is me with zero psychology experience or knowledge, okay? But I always feel when I'm around those people that it is anxiety and fear masked in the illusion of anger and power.
I think you're right. I do. I think it's a combination.
Yeah. I think most
It,
people who get so angry so quickly, I think it's really just fear. They're just walking around terrified.
okay, every once in a while it is just because someone's a tool, though.
Oh yeah, 100. Yes. All right. The next one is called the fixer. And this reaction is typically, according to our researcher, Chantel, how women express a stress response. I don't know about that personally, but all right, I'm going to go with what her research showed her. This can look like appeasement, people pleasing, overstepping boundaries, and even mothering people who aren't your kids. So I've read a little bit more about this, and I feel like it can look like if you're stressed out, you're either going to try to fix the situation, or rather than focusing on your stressful situation, you're going to take on a project, i.e., a friend who's also going through a stressful situation and try to fix theirs.
And this is a really good example of the environmental impact or the familial impact. So in if I was working with volatile kids, I did have to play this role to keep things calm. And in my family of origin, to navigate volatile outbursts, this was a response that I would use. So is it my stress or is it res- or is it because of what's happening in the environment around us? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean like your response to other people's stress?
Right. And it
Yeah.
would go into that very calm, that let's figure this out. We'll, and it is a very mothering energy, that maternal kind of a feeling to help people feel safe.
I'd love to
So,
know in the love language book, don't they say which love languages go best together?
yes.
I wonder if the fixer goes well with the exploder. I see those couples a lot, and it is typically a guy who explodes over everything. You're late. We're supposed to be there at 6 o'clock. You're not ready to, and the fixer partner's like, it's okay, honey. We're going to get there just in time. And, that type of thing. I wonder if those two tend to pair up more often.
I don't know. And then you have to wonder about the impact on the fixer in that kind of a situation. Is that to constantly be playing that role for someone who are you? I don't know. That would be worth thinking about. Now I'm going to start looking at people I know and trying to figure that out.
I think it would be exhausting to be the fixer because who fixes you?
Right.
Always
Okay.
giving like that. I think that would be more stressful.
So, which comes back to the conversations we've had about hyper responsibility, not feeling like anyone has your back, always having to take care of yourself, hyper independence. Do you have more of a propensity to become a fixer as a stress response if, and again, it comes back to environment and
Mm-hmm.
circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that can be a really important thing to journal and meditate about.
Right.
All right. And then the next one is called the number, as in a person who numbs themselves to the outside world when things aren't going well. And so this person will use escapism. So maybe drugs, alcohol, online gaming, overworking, over exercising as a coping mechanism for stress. Now,
Uh,
I think I've done that before. Now,
oh, me too.
not drugs or alcohol, or God knows not online gaming, but but I definitely will turn to work as a way to numb anything going on. If I'm really, really stressed, because sometimes you get really, really stressed out and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. You can't fix it. You can't, what's the point of exploding about it? And you can't freeze about it because you need to do stuff about it. And so a good way to calm it down is to just get it done.
That makes sense because it's the one thing you can control in your life if everything else feels like it's spinning out of control. I'll
Yeah.
just focus on work, I'll focus on my exercise. This is something I can do. And I think that there's a difference between the addictive, there's an addiction in all of the things that they mentioned because overworking or overexercise is more of an addictive behavior than, um, but I know quite a few people that this is their modality.
I would like it if over exercising was my response to stress.
Okay, if we're talking about people being in, if you're in relationship, how effective would it be to have two people that are number, that that's how they process? Because countless time I've talked with folks and I've experienced that, someone may have addictive behaviors or substance abuse or something else or dependence on a substance, and the other person goes through it as well, but they do it straight. So it would be really difficult to have that be your way to deal with stress and be with someone that also has that way to deal with it.
Yes. I
So I
think
wonder who it
sometimes
would match up with.
the number,
Yeah,
I think I've seen the number and the fixer together.
right.
I had a client who came to me for years. She was very, very nice, but I really did think she was going to worry herself to death. She was a stay-at-home mom. She had 5 children, and that was her entire life. And she did fix everything in their life. Talk about a Hoover parent, you know? I mean, she had all their teachers on speed dial, and I mean, she was just over planned, over organized, over involved, and it was overwhelming being around her. And after several months, she sent her husband in to see me. He was super nice and kind, but he worked full time, really hard, difficult corporate job. He taught business classes at the college at night, and he taught Sunday school on Sundays, and he did a men's religion group on Wednesday mornings. The guy was never home.
Hmm.
And I started to realize he needs a break from this woman who's just, too much fixing. And he was numbing out through overwork and volunteering. It wasn't a bad relationship necessarily. Do you know what I mean? They were wonderful people, It was just different mechanisms of dealing with a very, very big family and all that goes with that.
Right. I think that we need to add scrolling on this for the number. People that will just scroll as a way to self-soothe through stressful situations.
Like on
Through,
TikTok, you mean?
yeah,
Or
TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, social media, just anything that is you're disassociating yourself from your everyday life and what you have to deal with. And I catch myself doing that. I'll just like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and like scroll my phone for a minute. And then you look up and 25 minutes have gone by and it's like, oh, that's time you don't ever get back. So I think that that's something else to consider is, are you numbing yourself out because it's not really that you're bored or you're interested in what is on there, but it's a stress response.
okay, but this is an argument I've had with people for years. And I'll give an example. If I see if I see a person who's homeless and they're asking for money and I have cash on me, I always give it to them. And whoever I'm with inevitably will give me pushback. You shouldn't do that. They're just going to buy alcohol with that. And I said to this, just happened a couple of weeks ago, and I said to the person, look at that man. Look at how sad and disheveled look how hot it is outside. If he takes my $5 and goes and buys a pint of beer, good. He gets 10 minutes of his life not to think about the hellstorm he's living in at this moment. And I
Mhm.
always wonder that, like, when you are super, super stressed, is it bad to numb out for 10 minutes by scrolling through social media or watching a sitcom or running on the treadmill? I don't know. It's a debate I've had with people and myself.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. And that, the adage of there, but for the grace of God go I. And I try to remind myself of that. There's a person who panhandles in this small town that I'm in, and I don't even know if that's an appropriate term anymore. And I pulled up and I hit him. And then one day, and I noticed, something doesn't feel right about this. Because I will also help people that it's you never know. You never know when your number's going to come up, and that could be you. And then I overheard him having a conversation with someone in the car in front of me, talking about having these three giant dogs and that, this and that. And it was all a scam. And I think that's what troubles people is that we want to help, we want to be present, we want to be kind, we want to help people escape this miserable world. And then the cynicism can sneak in because of situations like that.
Oh yeah, and I totally respect that. I mean, gosh, just driving the other day, I saw a brand new car drop off, someone at the corner with a sign. I get that. I totally do. And I
Yeah.
think it can be all of that. I'm just saying there are certain moments when I was in my daughter's city where she's now living in the downtown area, and this guy and I didn't have cash. And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't have any cash." And he goes, "I have Venmo." And I was like, wait a minute. But I just mean, with all of these stress responses, again, I feel like we say this on every show, but it must be about balance because I think if you need to numb out for 10 minutes, that's fine. But if you're numbing out for days, weeks, months on end, not fine. If you need to fix a situation in the moment and no one's doing anything, maybe your partner or your child or your friend is freezing, and so you need to take action to help them, that's okay. If you need to explode because someone's being a total jackass and you just need to get it out of your system, I think that's okay. You know what I mean? I think all of these are okay. It's just if it's your consistent, constant response and you're never identifying the root cause of the stress, if
That's
you're
a
just walking around the weed but never pulling it out, that's where the problem starts.
right. And there's a big difference between that's an excellent, excellent point because taking 10 minutes to calm down or to if you've been talking to people all day and you take 20 minutes to just scroll something or watch a funny video or zone in front of the TV for a few minutes, that is, in a weird sense, that's a healthy stress response. But if you're doing it to the exclusion of taking care of responsibilities or being present for your loved ones or you're not showing up for life, then I think that that's more the extreme.
Yes, I do too. Now, this
Uh,
last one, Denise, I can't handle being around. I would rather be around the other four every day for the rest of my life than this last one. Do you want to talk about it?
the denier of,
Yeah,
I know your favorite, toxic positivity for stress and being overly optimistic to avoid reality. I'm very optimistic person. Glasses just tumble over the top. They're so full. But I'm also a realist. And I think that you have to have both. But the people who are, you're standing in front, there's a freight train barreling down, and you, don't worry, it's going to be okay. No, hell no. Get off the tracks.
exactly. I think the denier is also someone like, oh, she didn't mean that. She doesn't know what she's saying. She knows exactly what
Mm,
she's saying. Let's just put it all out on the table. I don't like that. I think you see a denier a lot in codependent relationships, right?
um,
I know when growing up, when my dad was actively drinking before, he entered rehab and became such a proponent of AA, I was the bullshit caller in my family because everyone else was denying it, Oh, he only drinks because he's stressed out. Work is very busy. I cannot handle people who deny the obvious in front of them. I think it's just the truth teller in me. But I
right.
think that's a really toxic response to stress because you're denying your own pain, your own stress. But in doing so, I feel like you're denying all the people around you their right to be stressed or in pain.
You can't change a behavior if you don't even realize you're doing it. And that's the key to all of this is that if you don't realize that your stress response is to deny it or to fix it or to implode or explode or whatever, then you don't have that starting off point to say, okay, this is, wow, I have a pattern here. And what do I need to do to be able to recognize that? Because we don't want to get into a place where the cumulative stress starts to add to higher levels of anxiety and depression, which again, heart disease, high blood pressure, all of that stuff.
Exactly. All right, let's take a common stress example and try to apply these to that example. Say you have a coworker who's always taking credit for work you do.
Oh,
The
okay.
imploder would respond to that by just freezing, I guess, right? In the presentation where the colleague is taking credit for your work and would say nothing.
Right.
And then you're just constantly swallowing that down. That's going to lead to a lot of health stuff. The exploder in that situation, in the middle of that presentation, would be like, no, Sally, I'm the one who came up with that idea. And then you look like the jerk in that presentation with all of the other coworkers and most likely your boss. And then Sally looks like the good normal one, and you look like the stressed out, angry person, right?
Hmm.
The fixer, how would they respond in that situation?
I don't know. Because all
I
I'm
would,
thinking about when you're talking is where does it fit in the passive aggressive of mumbling under your breath of what the hell is this shit all about? How, where does that one fit in?
I
Anyway.
think that's the imploder.
Okay. So, and it again depends on your work environment. And, as you're saying this, I'm thinking of a person that listens faithfully to our show and who is incredibly kind and a high profile job. And this has been happening where other people have been taking credit for their work. And you're spot on. That has been the response is the imploder of I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't want to be the target of this. So that's interesting. I
Would
don't
they, would the
know.
fixer mind? Would the fixer just be like, oh, this is great. I fixed this so that it works for both of us?
Well, if it's people pleasing and overstepping boundaries, and maybe the fixer would try to take care of the other people that it impacted,
Probably.
but not themselves.
Yeah, probably. And the number, I guess, would just sit in that meeting nodding and then run out and get two vodka tonics at lunch or jump on the treadmill for an hour. I don't know.
Oh, that's true.
And just ignore it. And the denier would be like, "Oh, isn't this great? We're working together so well. This is gonna, they're gonna get promoted. Sure, Sally's getting the promotion, but she's gonna turn around and pull me right up with her."
I really think that it can be the more we talk about this, I think there's a combination of these. I wonder if people have just one that they identify with. Because I'm thinking in a work environment, I'm going to act much differently than I would if I'm with family or friends, or if I'm, um, a bigger thing. You're in a car accident. How are you going to react to that kind of a stress? Are you going to like let go of a string of expletives and shake your hand out the window? Are you going to go into shock? Are you going to be like, uh-oh, what can I do to help? So I really think it would vary
That's
with the
true.
situation.
That's true. I've found that in big high stress situations, I'm actually really good and really calm and I just handle it. I do well. But in the day-to-day stressors, I don't do as well. And so I wonder if you're right, if there's different stress languages to different types of stress, different environments of that stress, and then the unique history of those stress languages between people in your life hitting you and all of your different stress languages combining.
I years ago I thought because of I love brain chemistry and all that stuff, we know this, that I thought, oh, I psychiatric nursing would be fascinating. I had worked in state institutions, I had worked in hospitals, I had done other things, but then I get a little queasy. So I thought, that's probably not the best thing. But when I've been in situations where there's been extreme blood or people have been hurt, it's this calmness comes over and I'm able to. There was a kid years ago, and he got cut really badly, and I very calmly went over and I put the compression, did all those things. But if I had just seen that, I would have. So I think the circumstances really do indicate how you respond
And
for the
then
abridged version.
after, did you freak out? Because sometimes I'll do that. And then when the stress is ended, then I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah, I got really nauseous and shaky.
Yeah. Yep. Now, Donnelly says that the first three, the exploder, the imploder, and the fixer, are based on biologically where people go when they become stressed. But with the last two, the denier and the number, those are based on strategies that people try to use on a regular basis to overcome or manage stress. And so she says, how do you know which one is your stress language? Well, she says, I suggest that people ask their partners if they see a pattern. Oh, that's a fun conversation to have, right? And realize that you may not agree, but to step back and be really curious about what your partner sees in you. It's really about catching yourself and your partner in these repetitive approaches to stress.
And this comes back to the languages of, oh, you always do that when. And if you're with an exploder, they're going to hit the roof because
Yeah.
it's coming across as an attack, not as helpful criticism, constructive criticism. Um,
Yeah, and I wonder if you're in a partnership with one of these that we're talking about, don't you think sometimes people will pre, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like let's say your partner is always mad when you are late
mhm.
and you know you're going to be late and you know they're going to explode. I wonder if you get into this habit of trying to fix that, by already coming up with an excuse or, or changing the time or what have you. I know I have a very good couple in my family. They've been married forever. I love them both, but the husband is always late, always late. And so my family member just tells him the wrong time.
Mhm.
And so like if an invitation to a wedding or a baptism comes in the mail, she hides it and she tells him, "Oh, the wedding starts at 1," when really it's 2:30.
So
And
they
that's
found a way for it to work.
yeah. So maybe there's like, where you do get in those situations. So rather than saying always or never, okay, if he or she always does do that, is there a way to, work around that without exploding or imploding or numbing it?
Yeah, but she's never told him that she's doing this.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't
No,
think
because
so.
I used to be chronically late. Like it was a problem. I was last minute. Every once in a while, I still spin in on two wheels to, if I'm trying to get someplace, but not like I used to. And I went somewhere one time and I got there and I said, and the woman kind of smirked at me and said, I told you the wrong time because you're always late. And it
Oh,
and it really annoyed me. I was angry. I didn't explode. I wasn't the exploder about it, but I was just I felt bad about myself that someone had to do that and I just didn't feel good about it. I didn't like the way it was
no,
handled.
she
Whereas if she
shouldn't
had
have
just
said that.
no, but if she had said to me, Denise, you're always late for everything. Look, it starts at 2, but can you please be here? I would have made sure I was there on time because
Right.
then the stubborn would have kicked in, but it felt really manipulative. And I'm not saying that about your family people because that I know who you're talking about and they're anything but. They're that's not even an issue.
No, but I know what you mean. I have a friend, if we like I met her for dinner a couple of nights ago and we were meeting at 7 and I'm not late. It's just I don't like to be early either.
Hmm.
I find it kind of rude. Like, oh, she does this too. If I have a party and I say, oh, the party starts at 6 p.m., Denise, she is knocking on my door at 5:30.
Oh, too early.
And she
Too
goes, I'm
early,
always
people.
early. And I'm like, girl, when I'm hosting a party, I need all of those last 30 minutes. Don't you?
Hmm.
I gotta run around. Did I get the ice? Oh my God, did I change the guest towel in the bathroom? I need all those 30 minutes. No, no, no. So anyway, we were meeting for dinner at 7, and there was a shopping place across. I needed to pick up this book. So I actually got there early. I got there at 6:30. She was there.
Oh my.
Yeah. I don't understand early people either. I don't understand chronically late people. I don't understand chronically early people. It's a stress I'm gonna have to deal with.
Was was she ever in the military?
No.
Okay, because that can be a military thing. A man I used to work with was in and we would go to meetings, and he was always the first one there. And I asked him one day, and he said, "No, I'm always 15 minutes early for everything." And it was almost like you could set a clock to him that it was 15 minutes that he would show up and he would sit there and wait. So,
Well,
and he said it
isn't
was a
it Frank
military thing.
Sinatra who said if you're 10 minutes early, you're already late?
Oh,
I think it's an anxiety thing.
I think so too.
And
But
so you and I
either way,
just aren't riddled with anxiety. That's all.
or we hide it really well.
Or we numb it. Yeah, who knows?
They should have the hider. That would be a good one
That would
because
be a good one.
they don't have the hider, do they?
Maybe that is the number because you're hiding it through numbing, because they
Huh.
didn't have other things on there. Like I know, oh gosh, as a kid especially, I always numbed out through books. I mean, that was my thing. If I moved to a new school and I didn't have any friends those first few weeks, I made sure to have a book in my book bag so I could just read at the cafeteria table or at recess, or I would always volunteer to help the teacher on, recess to help her clean desks or something just because I don't want to deal with going out and meeting new friends again.
Hmm.
So I think numbing is part of hiding.
Yeah, I did the reading too for different reasons. Yeah, I think that a lot of empathic, sensitive, introverted people have taken that route. It's escapism, but it's also it's a healthy escapism.
I think so.
That's because we
Well,
both love to read.
that's true. That's true. Oh, I just got well, it's not new. It's new to me. It's actually out of print. It's this book. I haven't started it yet. It's called Nevermore, and it's about Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle come together to fight and find a serial killer in New York City with the help of Edgar Allan Poe's ghost.
Oh, that's right up your alley.
Right up my alley. I can't wait to start it. I hope I have time this summer to actually read it. Anyway, I just think that stress in general is inevitable, but it is a killer. It really does lead to a lot of health issues. So we're not ever going to eradicate stress. Just like, they always say in yoga, they always say in any meditation class, it's called meditation practice because we're practicing it. We're not perfecting it. It's the same thing with learning how to deal with our stress. You're not going to ever perfect how you deal with stress, but I have found that being really, really authentically honest with yourself and your emotions and tuning in from time to time to see how you're feeling, what you're feeling, why you're feeling this, and then coming up with healthy, good strategies to deal with that stress, to heal that stress, to learn how to tread water during that stressful time, because sometimes that's all you can do, is really going to be the most effective thing to get through challenging times.
Oh, very, very well said.
I think that'll wrap it up for us.
I agree.
I hope everyone has a week with zero stress. We hope you all have a beautiful, peaceful week. And remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.